question. Are you done? Are the geo tubes draining the way they're supposed to, or they can't drain the way they're supposed to?
They
because
are,
of the
they-
saturation.
From what I've been told, they are doing exactly what they're supposed to do, and they are drained. But the problem is we could fill one every other day.
Wow.
You know, those tubes, just the tubes themselves are like $1,500 a piece. And
So
we-
David, where we are right now is we just, we know how we would get it out. We just need to know about what it would cost to get us, and then,
Yes.
and then we as a council need to approve that budget amendment from the
Correct.
funds we already have there.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds simple enough.
Yeah, that's why I would like to get Kurt involved, to see what avenue we think is best and the most cost-effective, you know, to accomplish what we want to accomplish at the end of the day.
What kind of timeline, David, do you think?
I honestly don't know, because I know all of these companies are swamped and covered up and everything else. But Kurt is in meetings in Atlanta this week. He's agreed to meet with me as quick as he gets back next week. So once he gets back, I plan on trying to make some calls to some of these companies and see what I can find out. And as quick as I get an answer on that, I'll be glad to send it back to you through Shannon or whatever.
Is there any chance we'll run into new surprises when we start emptying those things?
Well, I will tell you this, the stuff has already been tested that's coming out of the plant now, and it has passed all of the tests to make it legal to haul to the landfill in Union, South Carolina. Now, if another company comes in and requires different testing, I don't know what those tests may, you know, they may ask for something different, I don't know. But I do know so far that it has passed every test that it had to.
Is that a test required by the place that accepts it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You know, initially, they done a trial basis with the geotubes some years ago, and they were left down there at the plant when I got involved in it, and we had those removed, and that went to Blunkville, Tennessee. They required a set of tests. It passed it. Well, then, after we sent it up there, I found out that Union, South Carolina landfill, which is a whole lot closer, said they'll accept it. So we had to do all the testing again for them, and everything passed all the tests to send it down there. So it's very likely, if we had a company that was willing to remove it, Union, South Carolina, I'm sure would take it, because they've already approved it. But, what that'll cost, John, I don't know until I talk to them, and I guess they do some figures, you know. But,
Well, I'm not necessarily thinking about what it's gonna cost. I'm just thinking about, you know, that stuff's been in there forever.
yeah.
What are we gonna find
Yeah.
when we get in there is what bothers me some.
Yep, I agree.
We keep, seem like we're backing up and we're finding more problems. It just keeps backing us up. You know, nobody's fault,
Right, yep.
other than the fact we haven't stayed on top of it for years and years.
that's
We should not be in this position
I
because
agree.
it's not gotten attention and the money's not been spent where it needed to be spent, so.
Well, all I can tell you at this point, I hope we get good results and good news out of it. A lot of times if you stir it, it stinks. So.
A really good place to stir it, so I can
Yeah, so I don't know what we'll come up with, but, I appreciate you, considering us moving forward with that, because, if we don't, we're gonna continue in the same $100,000+ a year, and we're not gonna gain anything, you know. If we can spend that or twice that in a year and remove it, it only makes sense, so.
Water?
Okay. The water interconnect that we've been talking about between Firefly Cove and the Lake Lure system, we're still moving forward with that. I'd like to thank Bob Cameron for his help with that. He's helped me a lot throughout this. Matter of fact, me and Bob and some property owners out there have a meeting lined up tomorrow for approval of a spot to put booster pump station to be able to make this interconnect possible. So the engineer's estimate on design, putting this thing into place, all the permitting and everything, they said it's looking like it's probably gonna be around a $200,000 project to make all this happen from start to finish. Laura has been looking into some grants and stuff for us, that we're checking into to see if there's any grants or funding possible that may help us with this. But we don't have an answer to it yet, but that's basically where we're at on it.
If you don't mind, what did we budget on that project? Do you know?
75,000?
And the cost is gonna be 200
Yes.
completion?
That was their estimate. I mean, it has not went out to bid or anything like that, but he said it could very easily be a $200,000 project.
Was that on our CIP and projected out to another year, or is
We
some
would-
reason we didn't have it all in one year?
We wouldn't come back to you this year and ask for that money. That would be a next year's
Yes.
type project.
Oh,
We're just trying to get through the planning and
Gotcha.
the permitting
Yeah.
and making sure we secure the site
Yeah.
this budget year. Next budget year, we'd come back to you for implementation.
All right, thanks.
Anything else?
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Next, Brad Burton is going to give us an update on Wi-Fi. And just to clarify, when we talk about Wi-Fi, the project we've been working on is basically confined to Town Hall, Morse Park, the new campground, the beach, the arcade area, the area where, in the event lawn, mostly where tourists are. So when we talk about downtown Wi-Fi, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about town-wide. So, Brad, why don't you go ahead and brief us?
That's correct. Good evening, thank you. The project is, excuse me, the RFPs are back, and it's been a little bit of an arduous task sorting through all that stuff. Had a lot of help from our town attorney, got his feedback earlier this week, and in the process of putting together a final report for this. That report with recommendations will be at the next UAB meeting, and that's my primary work focus this week, is to get that done. But thanks to William Morgan, I got one more version I need to bounce off of him, and then we should be good to go as far as the recommendation as to the respondents to the RFPs that went out. Are there any questions about that? Okay. You can just keep on going, Shannon?
Please, sir.
Thank you, sir. Commercial Center, if I could, I'd like to defer the discussion on that topic to new business A, which is on this evening's agenda. That's okay with everyone? Welcome Center restrooms, same idea. If we could hold this for new business A, I think that would be an appropriate time to discuss that. Lake drawdown and permits. Dean Givens, Mitchell Anderson, Garrett Murphy, and I have all scheduled a meeting in Asheville with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Regional Director Scott Jones and the local area officer Brandy Boggs for September 17th. As you folks are aware, my department picked up lake structures and all the permitting things that are involved with that when Clint Calhoun left with lake operations. And so we have, I think we're doing a pretty good job of interpreting the regulations, but there are some things that the Corps has that just befuddle the dickens out of all of us. So we are actually going to sit down and meet with these guys, and Mitchell has put together a very extensive list ahead of time of questions that we're going to be presenting to them. But the goal is to let them know that we anticipate a number of permits when the lake goes down this year, and how to, and what to give ahead of time as information to folks in the community that may be having projects that involve below lake level type work. And we're going to have Laura help us a bunch with that, but I'm envisioning basically a white paper that's going to be published on social media and everywhere else that will, if you're doing this, you need this. If you're doing this, you need this. And I want to bring, there was a comment, I believe it was the last meeting, about Clint used to do a blanket permitting system or something like that. We actually found out what that was. And that's really not a blanket permit, it's just an assemblage of all the permits and sending them off in one fell swoop to water quality, basically is the main part they're going to. There's an inherent problem with that system, and that problem is that they work top of the stack down. And as crazy as it sounds, if you successfully get number 1, number 2, number 3, and there's a problem with number 4, then everything stops until they resolve number 4. we've got a finite window of time that for this lake drawdown, so we don't want to get anybody hung up in permitting ahead of time. And if we pick them up by the blanketing process, or pick them up in mass, if you will, and take the responsibility of making sure everybody's permits are in place and whatnot, that's an onerous workload for our department as well. So what we're trying to do is an education element. We're trying to get this white paper out. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to have. You need to submit on your own so your permit stands on its own and doesn't get stuck in a pile, and you're not subject to being held up by some bureaucratic process that they have. And I've been assured that's how it works. So as crazy as it is this day and time, that was what they said. So that's what we're in. Once we get back from the meeting on September 17th with the Corps, we will have something for Laura to get out post haste and get to everyone. And they need to start really thinking about it. If you're doing something, you need to start thinking about it now. And then getting ready to go with it. And that's all I have for now. Is there any other questions?
Thanks, Brad.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wanted, next couple of projects on here we're going to give you an update on is the new marina boardwalk. Dean's going to address that. And then also, last council meeting, you guys asked us to contact wildlife about relocating bears. So Dean contacted wildlife. Dean, so if you could tell us about those two projects, would be great.
Okay. On the Marina Boardwalk project, so far, I've released a RFP for the demolition of the existing wooden boardwalk. Those RFPs are due back on the 16th. We'll do a bid opening on the 16th and be able to have those numbers of what it's going to cost us to tear down the existing boardwalk. I've just received the final engineering drawings for the land pieces that will connect to the floating pieces of the boardwalk. So that RFP, I'd like to try to get out next week so we can start getting a cost estimate of a cost of what it's going to cost us to build this marina. I've also met with Sam and Amy. Sam's working on the financial piece of this. He's putting together the documents for the LGC. Getting these RFPs back and this numbers in place is very critical to what we're going to bring to the LGC for approval of the project. And looks like the earliest we can get on the LGC's agenda is the December meeting. And Sam's heading that aspect of it up. And also I'm working on building a timeline for once it hits finance, if it's approved, and our contractors are in place, how long it's gonna take to order the docks, get the docks here, and the construction timeline, seeing as we're gonna be kind of behind the ball with not being able to get to the LGC before December, actually putting the docks together with lake up and stuff, so we'll have to see what kind of timeline we run into the spring with that project.
Dean, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
It's like we have this in several phases, the demolition phase and then the construction phase mainly. Before we start the demolition, we'll have all the construction ready to go, contracts in hand and so forth, so we don't run the risk of going through demolition and then have some sort of hiccup with the construction.
Yes, sir, we can do that in any timeline, once we get the approval and the money's there. The contractor will be able to tell us when the docks are gonna be ready and what kind of timeline that they can have it put back in place.
Okay, the way you're doing this bidding, is it possible that you may have one contractor for demolition and another for construction?
That is correct.
Okay, all right.
Tearing down the wooden boardwalk that exists now is gonna be kind of strategic work. It's gonna have to be done by barge from the water. We had some people talk to us about doing it by excavator from the road reaching over, but with the power lines around there and stuff, there's gonna be no possible way. So we've kind of targeted contractors who have the availability to put a barge with a small excavator on it to lift this dock out. And right now it's went out to 4 different contractors for bid.
Are we specifying that they have to use a barge, or are we leaving it open for them to come up with their own solution of how they actually tackle
Leaving it
it?
to them.
Good.
So, if the barge is the way to do it, it's gotta be done before December 1, right?
Well, not necessarily. If we hire a contractor to build the docks, we're gonna have to put a deposit down, and it's gonna be probably a couple of months before the docks ever get here. Because whoever we contract with the dock company, they're gonna build these docks at their manufacturing plant. They'll build them out in a field and put them together and make sure everything works and fits to what they say their scale is before, then they will disassemble them and send them here. So there'll be a couple of months there that demolition can start taking place.
But if the water's down,
Right, but,
that can't happen if it's by barge.
right, but I anticipate the lake will be back up prior to,
Okay, so you
Before
think
we
it'll
can-
be that far out before they're ready to start demolition?
I do.
So one other thing contractors may consider is using, mats in an excavator.
They could, and
Yeah.
on that one side of the lake, I feel sure that it's a solid bottom.
Yeah.
There's a very small, soft spot, Bob can attest to, we've seen an excavator go to China out there right in front of the marina stuff, but I think when we get back toward the, shoreline there, there's a possibility that could happen on mud mats.
Okay.
Wasn't that the underwater connection to the bottomless pools? I think.
I think so, that excavator went away.
How about any permitting do we need to do with the state or anybody?
We are working on it, as Brad just mentioned, we're meeting with Army Corps of Engineers, that'll probably be our main permit that we have to obtain. And,
Make sure,
then Brad's gonna issue me a demolition permit for the demolition of the marina and stuff, so I believe we got a tight hand on permitting.
If you get any
Just wanna make
kickback
sure.
on that from us, let us know, will you?
Okay.
So one of the things we have talked about, Dean and I have been speaking about the timeline, and if it's so tight that there's a possibility we move into tourist season, we may roll it to the next season. But we're gonna do everything we can to see if we can get it done this year. But if we're gonna bump into the tourist season, it will be rolled over into next year. That way we'll have the financing in place, we'll have the numbers, might have to go back to them and get an update on the numbers, but we wanna make sure that when the dock comes out, we can go back and we don't get caught in a situation where the dock's out, the season's here, and we can't get it in for the season. I mean, all that would be not a best case scenario.
And looking at this, there could be two phases to the aluminum floating boardwalk area. One is, as Shannon's just talked about, is can we get it done in time? Well, there's also the piece that we could build the boardwalk itself that would go from the boat ramp around to the beach and let all that be built in time for season, and then maybe even during season, start adding the slips if council so desires, because then the boardwalk could be open for people walking, and the boat slips would just simply be an attachment to that
Right.
boardwalk. There wouldn't be like a lot of construction going on the boardwalk itself.
It's just
So it's
fingers,
just an option.
just fingers coming out with the slips, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So that would be an option that we could look
So,
at, but once we dial that timeline in, and, probably after the first year, maybe by January, we'll have a better idea of how long it's gonna take to get the docks here and how long it'll take the contractor to build them once they're here.
Bears?
Bears, learn to live with them. It's basically the bottom line. We contacted, the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission. We've actually contacted their, biologist, and, Laura's done some work with this too. She's, got it set up. They're gonna come down and do a Bear Wise program. It's gonna be at Rumbling Bald on September the 24th at 6 p.m. at Lakeview Terrace. We've talked to Wildlife about relocation. That's not something that is gonna happen. They don't do that. They said that we're not the only area that is being inundated by bears. We're one of the worst areas. The state of North Carolina is one of the worst areas. Basically, their Bear Wise program is gonna teach you to how to live with them, how not to leave out scraps, bear-proof your trash cans, bird feeders. Take away their food source, and you'll take away their reason for coming around your house or being on your property. They'll get a lot more in depth with that, and it's moreover a process of living in harmony with them, and just don't give them a reason to be there. Community development, Brad and Mitchell, I know that it's in the vacation rental regs that they gotta have, animal-resistant trash cans. And, Brad and them have been fielding a few complaints with, trash and things at these vacation rentals, and they've been addressing them. I don't know what to the extent, but it's stuff that they're just working on, as far as the complaints and things come in.
Was an organized hunt discussed as an option, since they won't do any relocation?
Well, I'm sure that could be an option. I have heard that they are raising the limit on how many bears people can kill during the season. That'd be something we could probably talk to the biologist about when he comes to do the Bear Wise program. And that is another.
So it wasn't discussed during the other one, okay.
No.
Would you please bring that up and ask about that?
Yes.
I talked with the, Toby Jenkins, I think he's the head wildlife officer in our area. And, he said that as far as he was concerned, that was about the only thing that was gonna make it any better. He said that, the bears have gotten so numerous in the last couple of years that this past year, there were actually more bears killed by automobile than there were by hunters. And, anyway, he said that still hunting is the best way to reduce the numbers, and he said that relocating just doesn't work. Said they took one to Cades Cove up on the other side of Gatlinburg. 2 days later, it was back in Tuxedo, just right over here in Henderson County. So that just is not an option. So, yeah.
Appreciate you checking into that. We want to give the citizens an answer, and
Right. And also, just to let you know, Laura has already put that out on the town's Facebook, that date, and I'm sure you probably do another blast, remind people of it. So I think that's probably the best thing to do is to listen to them and try to figure out how to live with them.
Thank you, Dean.
thank you.
So, one of the things that we've asked Laura to do is head up a grants team. So we met with a number of staff, and so one of the things we've asked Laura to do is to create a grants database, a repository. And so when any of us see a grant opportunity, we'll send that to Laura. It goes in the database, and then as opportunities come up, she's looking to see if we can match a project with a grant. So I've asked Laura to talk with us just a little bit about the grants that she's working on in the grants program, and then also events. Laura.
Great, thank you, Shannon, and good evening, everyone. As Shannon mentioned, we do have a team, and we are aggressively seeking out these grants to support both our infrastructure and some of our other community needs to support Lake Lure. As a reminder, specifically about one of our grants that Shannon mentioned briefly with FEMA, last month I updated you on our grant that we submitted for the High Hazard Dam. And we had a rather bleak report last month because we had received notice from the director of the Division of Energy that the state had not completed their risk and mitigation plan. So therefore, everything was on hold. We did, however, maintain close contact with the Department of Quality, and they are the office to whom we submit our application. And so we were a sub-applicant with the Division of Environmental Quality. And there is some light at the end of the tunnel. We are encouraged that it seems that they are kind of brokering with FEMA to allow kind of a mid-range risk and mitigation plan that would allow them to rate and rank those who applied for this high hazard dam rather than all 2,000 high hazard dams in North Carolina. So we're very encouraged. I made a call just before the meeting to see if we had an update. And of course, they're backed up because of all the work with the hurricanes. So that has really delayed some of their efforts. But I am told that I'll receive a call at any time and that we will be receiving an award letter of some kind. We don't know what that will be. And apparently the funding has been reduced, so we wouldn't be receiving near what we applied for. But we will keep you posted as we learn more specifics about this. But we are encouraged that there's a possibility that we might receive some funding. Additionally, as part of this effort that Shannon has set up for the grants team, I was able to attend some training with the Division of Water Grants through the NCDEQ. And so that enabled us to get information about timelines for grants for this year and next year. And we're working very closely with our engineering firms to help coordinate the process for applying for both these grants and low-interest loans. So probably we'll have one going forward with Brown Engineering for the Clearwater State Revolving Fund this year. And then we hope next year to work with two of our other contractors, Kurt Wright and also Withers Ravenel, with regard to two other grants to help support the sewer system. And I think that's what David was referring to earlier. So that's a high-level overview of our grant work. Any questions or comments?
We appreciate it.
Shall I move on to events? In the interest of time, I put together this list of some upcoming events, and these are not all necessarily town events. Some are sponsored by the chamber and some by our friends at Rumbling Bald Resort. But I thought it would be helpful to have a listing for all of our calendars, and those in the audience hopefully found a copy of this listing at the entranceway as well. Because we want all of you to attend as many of these events as you can. Of course, what's in the forefront of my mind, Laura Doster's mind, Rob Earl's mind, and the rest of our Dirty Dancing Planning Committee's mind is the festival coming up for this weekend. So we have many volunteers who are here in the audience, so special thanks to all who have volunteered to help support us. Our Dirty Dancing Planning Committee will be hosting a volunteer orientation here in Town Hall tomorrow. So if anyone didn't get that word, we did have some applications in the back, and I'll be happy to print one for you if you need one. And I'm sure Laura has some with her as well. But the Chamber has hosted this Dirty Dancing Festival for many years. In fact, this is the 10th anniversary. So the Planning Committee has been meeting for months on end working on this. And the festival starts Friday night. And it opens from 5 to 11. As you know, there will be a movie that is played in Morse Park. And I know our pre-sales have been very, very positive, over 1,000 for both Friday and Saturday. And so we're expecting a big crowd in town, but we've been working very closely with our fire chief and our police chief to ensure we have the highest level of safety. And there's also a security team that Rob Earls is leading to make sure everyone is safe while they're here in town. So any questions about that, since that's such a big festival for our town? Okay, we've had lots of exposure on radio and TV and in the news. So hopefully we will have a positive 10th anniversary of this event. As was previously mentioned, we've partnered with Rumbling Bald Resort and appreciate their support in hosting the Bearwise event for education that was mentioned previously. I know that conflicts with another big event that the Chamber is hosting, their annual meeting that night. So there will be some conflict for those of you who are Chamber members, but just want to let you know when that is occurring. We also are going to be recognizing all of our Lake Lure Board volunteers at an indoor picnic later this month. So We've had several register, but if there are any other board members that are here who haven't registered, please let us know that you can attend, as we really want to honor you and thank you for your valuable service. Also, the Chamber's hosting 2 candidates forums. You'll see those noted, one on October 1st at Rumbling Bald Resort. Again, we appreciate their support. And then one here in Town Hall on the 3rd. And then a couple of future events we just wanted to mention for your calendar. The Hickory Nut Gorge Outreach's Arts and Crafts Festival. That's coming up in October. And then the Lake Lure Artists Annual Show and Sale here at Town Hall, November 9th. And then again, another partnership with Rumbling Bald Resort to support our Veterans Day program. So these are some important activities that we hope you'll be able to attend, and hope this list is helpful to you.
Thank you very much.
Quick question, if I may, for clarification. We've got 4 candidates here in the audience. This paper says 5:30 to 7 for both of them. The emails I got today from the chamber, and I think Laura's here, said 5:30 to 7:30. Can we clarify the hours for the forum? 5:30 to 7, okay, thank you.
I'm so glad this one was right. Thank you. Thank you so much, and thanks to all the Chamber, the Rumbling Bald Resort, and Hickory Nut Gorge Outreach for all these outstanding activities.
Thank you. So next on our list, we're going to have Dustin talk to us, give us a little update on the Buffalo Creek landslide. So I think he's got some information for us.
Indeed. The Buffalo Creek landslide has been non-moving, hasn't moved in a while. The DOT has been monitoring the movement. Commissioner Moore and I attended a meeting with NCDOT about some of their preliminary temporary repairs to the Buffalo Creek area, and that's in the past couple of weeks. Some of you have noticed the repairs have been made to Buffalo Creek, and those are temporary repairs. DOT officials are confident that the landslide is going to move again eventually, but they don't know when. That's going to depend on the amount of rainfall in the area. Permanent repairs are not planned at this time because of the cost of the repairs, but they do have plans to make a more permanent solution, and they'll be coordinating meetings with the public and with the town as well about a more permanent solution to work around the slide. I think they expressed in the meeting to us that the bridge was going to be too costly for them to do, and that their plans incorporated going around the current slide. But they're going to ask for input from the town and from the community before they move ahead with any other plans. And with that public meetings scheduled, they'll work with me and Laura about getting that information out to the town, so that way you guys can all attend and express your opinions and whatnot to the DOT. Plans for the permanent solution may need to be adjusted, and they understand that, and they're willing to work around those improvements to the area. Questions about that I might be able to answer for you?
I think I'd like to add that I don't know how many letters left Rumbling Bald Resort to Secretary Trogdon, who's over DOT. But one of the comments that I heard DOT made at the meeting at Rumbling Bald Resort was, Dustin, you remember that? What did he say?
Yeah, he was like, please, whoever is writing the letters, stop. Apparently, they got a hold of the right representative and got the DOT moving.
So I think we may have an effective means to get their attention at the top when we need to. So I just want to express appreciation to the staff. You can see they're doing a great job. They're on top of things, and things are moving along nicely. And without exception, everyone that went to the mic mentioned Laura Creedy. And there's a reason for that. And it just, it's a nice display of the work she's doing for the town and her connection with staff, and the fact that she's facilitating good communication, and that's why we hired her. So she is there, she's effective, and you can see how well the department heads are communicating with her, and she's communicating that out to the community. So thanks to all of them. That's all we
She
have.
cooks good too.
That improves communication.
That's right. So that's all we have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you all so much for giving us that information. We'll move along to our council liaison reports. Commissioner Cameron?
I'll start. We had the Lake Lure Utilities Board meeting September 3rd, the regular meeting. As you heard up front with Brad, he informed you regarding the current town area Wi-Fi and update, so I won't go back over that. Shannon was at the meeting and also gave us some information regarding the Point Broadband, and earlier tried to bring in a group into the area, and they asked to get 30 customers signed up, and our area didn't get the 30, so it kind of discouraged those that were trying to bring us some other broadband into the area and cell service. Also, Shannon talked about working on the ER. We're trying to get this BLE to finish up on their core drillings to find rock in the area, to update the numbers. Our engineering numbers through that we had originally through Brown have just continued to keep escalating. We're trying to get the ER done so that we satisfy the state and meet all of their requirements. An example of this would be where for a house hookup should be somewhere around $8,000 per engineers. However, looking at contractors and talking to them, it could be as high as $25,000 for some locations that are hard to get to. So we're trying to get these numbers somewhere that are accurate, and by using BLE, we realize how much rock and stone and boulders have to be removed, and the same there with prices. Engineering's using $100 a cubic yard to remove. Your contractors look, and they can say it'd be as high as $250 a cubic yard to remove. So there's a lot of work being done by your town staff and the utility board trying to get these numbers corrected. They've also talked about the type of pumps and been going through that and vetting the pump contractors and the type of pumps to be used. So it's a work in progress, and hopefully we'll get that squared away. That's my report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Commissioner Gilby?
ABC actually met last month, and we're actually changing the meeting date for the ABC board meetings. It's going to be the third Monday in each month. The ABC board is currently conducting their annual audit inventory, and they're also, their financial audits being done now. We should have those results for next month's meeting. The new manager in training is in training still, so that should be in place pretty soon. No word on the ABC as far as if you read the paper or listen to the news. There's a lot of talk about privatization of the AV system in North Carolina and changing the way that it's done. So that's gone back to committee, I understand, and legislature, and they're working on that. So, you know, we could see changes in that, but there's no guarantee that we will or that we won't. Next is the Lake Advisory Board. Lake Advisory Board met yesterday. We had a subcommittee meeting that started at 1:30, and we met until 3:30, and then we had the regular Lake Advisory Board meeting started at 3:30 and finished about 5. So a lot going on there with the Lake Advisory Board. We, as you know, I requested that we move the Marine Commission meeting from this month to next month, and that is in the works. We're working hard to get the information to you that the board wants to present as recommendations. That is in regards to the commercial voting system that we have, the permitting system, the cost, the guidelines, the regulations. So that is being worked on. Dean and Garrett are working very hard on helping put that together for presentation to Council, Marine Commission next month. We're also looking at and discussing the boat permit fees for 2020, and trying to come up with an idea there, kind of like everything else in town. We don't stay on top of that if we don't address that each year and have smaller increases rather than waiting 5 years and have a large increase. So that's all being looked at with the board, and there'll be recommendations made to council on that as well. So that is it. We did have a group of folks come, citizens, to speak to Lake Advisory, their concerns about boat wakes, especially in the channel going from here down toward the main body of the lake. And they had a presentation they did on that, and will be looked at and studied by the Lake Advisory Board as well. And if you have concerns and you have an interest in knowing what these boards do, please come to the meetings. As you know, all of our town meetings are open to the public. And it's a great turnout tonight. And the best way to know what's going on in this town is to come to these meetings and hear for yourself what's being said.
So Father, you remind them of the dates, just in case.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Bob. So just a reminder again, the board, as the current plan is, the lake is scheduled to start down on December the 1st. We hope to be able to start back on February the 10th. If you have things that you want to plan to do to your boathouse, your seawall, or whatever, now's the time to get started making those plans. If you need a contractor, now's the time to contact a contractor and get your plans together, because we're going to do our very best to stick to these dates unless we run into some issue where we can. So we'll start down on December the 1st. We'll start back up on February the 10th. So you got things to do, go ahead and get them done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The Parks and Recreation Board met on September 5th, and Garrett Murphy has told us that he had attended a steering committee meeting with the Rutherford County Coalition concerning the county's master plan for parks and recreation, and that Lormont Trail had been omitted from that plan, and that they now have it on there. Mr. Murphy also discussed a new form that his department's working on, listing the rules and regulations that will be made available to people who are renting for vacation runners. The form isn't complete yet, but they're still working on that, and he's hoped to have it ready by the next meeting. There was discussion about the cost of maintaining the flower baskets we have throughout the town. Everybody agreed that they're beautiful, but they are expensive to keep up, require a lot of watering and maintenance. And after a discussion, it was suggested to maybe lower the number of baskets, but not to eliminate them. Weed Patch Mountain trails are clear. There are no downed trees on the trails. Gray Rock interior trails are clear. And the new AmeriCorps member, Callia Johnson, began, I guess yesterday, and she'll be at the next Parks and Recreation meeting. Ed Dittmer brought us up to date on the Dittmer Watts Nature Trail. They're planning on, the Lake Lure Classical Academy is planning on using it for some of their cross-country meets, and they're working on how much of the trails and how much of the golf course will be used there. They're still working out where exactly that route will be. And speaking of bears, there's also had a bear sighting on the Dittmer Watts Trail, so they're pretty much everywhere now. The Flower and Bridge counter is not working, and it seems to be a problem that is not completely waterproof, so they're looking into maybe getting a different kind of counter that will withstand the weather a little better. Golf play is really up. Dale Minnick said that there were 730 rounds of golf that month. And so far this year, that's 4,255 rounds of golf, which is much more than we've had in the past. There's a group that's going to use the course for a disc golf tournament, and they're sending work parties up to help with the greens and help prepare for the event. Mo Bay and Jim Walters and Garrett Murphy are working on a proposal to raise money for Parks and Recreations by naming rights to different parks and trails and anything, bridge, anything we can put a name on around here that has been very successful in other places, and they're gonna change it into a policy for charitable giving. And I think that's a great idea. We're probably gonna raise some money with that. Laura Creechy reviewed the upcoming events and for the board, and Mr. Dittmer gave us a review of the Olympiad and what a success it was this year. We adjourned the meeting here and reconvened out on the spoils pit, the one on this side of the river, and Dean gave us some information concerning what the vision was for the future of what we would do with it and how we could maybe convert some of that pit area into an amphitheater. And the meeting was adjourned at 4:20. And I want to mention that these minutes that are made available or put together after each meeting are available to the public. If anybody has more interest in anything that goes on at any of the meetings, all you have to do is call or email up here, and somebody will send you a copy of the minutes from any of the meetings. What we generally do up here is just give you a summary of the meetings, which are kind of a summary of the meeting. So the best if you can come to the meetings, and if you can't, you can get the minutes. Okay. And there was no business to come before the Zoning and Planning Board this month, so they didn't meet. Okay.
Thank you. I want to thank Commissioner Moore for attending the Parks and Rec Board meeting on my behalf. I had a medical appointment that kept me from being there. The Board of Adjustment did not meet. However, the Lake Structure Appeals Board did on August the 27th. There was one case, which was a deck top accessory structure at 167 Gottlieb Getaway. It was approved. And the board meeting for the Board of Adjustment and Lake Structure Appeals Board for September has been canceled due to no hearings or applications. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Alrighty, then we'll move on to our public comment. If there's anyone in the public who would like to comment on any non-agenda or consent agenda topic, please. Ronnie McLeod?
No, Wood.
Wood.
Ronnie Wood, I'm sorry. Bad handwriting here.
Yeah.
Good afternoon,
Good
Ronnie
afternoon.
Wood. I talked to y'all 2 months ago about the house y'all let have permits on 2 acres, less than 2 acres. Y'all steered me in the direction of Brad Burton. I've got him up there several times and we looked at it. Nothing has been done. They moved the house. I got the health department involved in it. They moved the house down the hill, 25 extra foot from the blueprints they gave the town. And that put them having to get a new septic tank permit. And it put it closer to my property line. And they're right on my property line now. There ain't a leaf left on that lot above me. And every time it rains, it's even worse now coming down in my yard. And there ain't nothing been done about it or anything. They finished today, the septic tank, covered it up. He said, oh, we put extra hay on top of the dirt. That's all it is red dirt above my house. And I'm on a hill, a 45-degree angle. And why do they even get permits? Nobody's checking nothing. The house supposed to be 55 foot, and it's 80 foot. I've measured it. And that guy built decks, no permits onto the house. So, and all the water's coming down to me and it's going into the creek, and the town's worried about the damn lake filling up. It's all coming from me, because I own all the property above the creek. Ain't nothing I can do about it. You're gonna have to talk to God about the creek. You ain't helping me out on my problems, I can't help y'all with the lake problems. You know, you put me in a bind. Now, I'm gonna have to deal with it myself.
Brad, can you enlighten us in what's going on here? Yeah.
I've called him 3 times and I never got no answer back about the measurements or the new permit. Like the guy finished the septic tank today, showed me the permit, the new one. And like I say, the house is setting down the hill too far. Now they have to move the septic system down the hill. Would have been 25 foot of undisturbed land. And trees falling down, I just cut the tree in two so they would not pull it out and disturb the leaves, because it's gonna make it wash worse. Trying to leave it as natural as I can above me. But I had to cut the trees because it's pushing trees over the top of my house. Now I gotta climb a tree to get it out from over the top of my house before winter and it snows, because it's a poplar and they're gonna snap when it gets the weight of the snow on top of my house. I gotta pay for that. The town hadn't helped me none since the last meeting, or done anything to them. They say they're going to, but nothing's been done.
Okay.
Thank you, Ronnie. Brad?
Yes, ma'am. The day this project began, Mr. Wood was not happy.
Say it again.
The day this project turned over the first shovel of dirt, Mr. Wood was not happy. And as he mentioned, he was not happy because there was not the 2 acre lot size minimum. He felt that was being violated. It should be known that I vetted that decision that I made to honor a previous zoning administrator's decision through our town attorney. He agreed that that was probably a very conservative way to address that and to go ahead and let it proceed. So that argument is really not, germane. I mean, it is germane, I guess, in his mind. But, from a legal standpoint, we didn't really do anything wrong as far as that goes. The project got off to a little bit of a rough start, and Mr. Wood responded, and we responded to Mr. Wood. We returned all his phone calls. I have not returned his phone call from Monday of this week, but I've not left any phone calls unreturned to him. It's either me or Mitchell has returned his call. Starting July 15th, I can produce an email here, and I've got the full folder where we've done no less than probably 7 inspections on that site that are documented, that are on the state sedimentation and inspection report form. Generally, every time we go up there, we'll find something. There'll be uncovered dirt, there'll be a silt fence that's down, there'll be measures that need cleaning out. Lawrence Crutchfield with Asheville Trademark Homes is extremely responsive. Every time we email him, he says he will take care of things. I've found that the past couple of times, he's not been as responsive as he said he was going to be. But at no time have we ever been in a situation where, with the exception of July the 15th, where I wrote to them by means of this email, I will allow until 3 o'clock tomorrow for all sedimentation and erosion control measures to be completely cleaned out and repaired. And I will arrive at the site with a stop work order in hand if the inspection has failed. So we have really been on these guys, as Grandpa said, like a duck on a June bug. They've put up double row silt fences. Some of the silt fences in the front are getting full. They need cleaning out. There was some land disturbance that happened. I can't imagine why they put their drain field in last, but they did. They did put up measures behind that, between that property and Mr. Wood's property. Today, they did finish, and Mr. Crutchfield sent us photos of the site where everything is covered up. He did put extra hay down. There's nothing in our ordinance that says he has to use SE 250 or anything like that. So, the sedimentation and erosion control measure, regulations deal with sedimentation and erosion. Water, is not part of that. Now, Mr. Wood has alleged that at times those fences have been full and some water has come over down on him. And that may be the case, but these guys have been extremely responsible with us. And so I just want to go on record saying that I can produce, clear the volumes of documentation, how we have responded not only to Mr. Wood's request, but we've actually had the State Sedimentation and Erosion Control Commission representatives went up there to look at the job site also. So,
Brad, when's the last time you were on site?
last time I was
Either
on
you or
site,
Mitchell?
last time I was on site was Monday.
Okay. Are there any outstanding violations with that property in any way?
There was a spot where he did not have enough coverage on his silt fence. There's a little area of bare ground that he needs to get covered that's probably over 100 square feet, but that was accomplished today.
So all those issues
As
have been
best as
resolved?
I can tell, I've not been up there. I'm gonna go up there tomorrow.
Okay.
I go up there at least once a week. I've been.
But as far as you know, they're in compliance
They are
with our standards?
They are in compliance with a set of regulations that are subject to some level of interpretation, but I do not see any evidence of any sedimentation or erosion leaving that site and going on Mr. Wood's site. There have been some tree issues there where the contractor cut down a tree or two, or a tree fell over, and I can produce information, email documentation, or I have pleaded with the contractor to get those up. The moving of the house, I'd like to comment on that also. As far as the town is concerned, we have a setback, a building envelope, which is defined by a building setback. The house may have moved 15 feet, but the house was not in a situation at any time during plan review where it would require a foundation survey. Our ordinance says if you are building within 5 feet of a setback line, the day you're approved, you leave with the understanding you will be providing a foundation survey or an as-built survey, as we like to call them, of the property. Mr. Wood, the Badillos and the contractor Lawrence Crutchfield, the site, they've got plenty of room everywhere. The fact that they might have moved the house is not a zoning violation per se, because it's not a setback encroachment. Now, they may have gotten themselves run afoul of the health department, placing the house in a spot where it didn't need to be, and negating the drain field diagram that was provided to them by environmental health, but evidently they fixed that. So that's not the bailiwick of the town. So I just want to impress, I can produce documentation that we've been responsive. I have not called Mr. Wood back from Monday, and I've just been busy. We are busy, but I can produce this to anyone that would like to see it.
One question, then. Where the house is sitting,
Yes, sir.
between there and Mr. Wood's house, the setback is what?
The published setback for the rear yard there is 10 feet.
Okay,
But
and
it's-
how
he's
far
He's
away?
a long way. He's a lot further than 10 feet from the property line.
20 feet?
I can't.
Yeah, but-
He's got enough room between him to put a 3-line drain field.
Okay,
There's a 3-line drain field between the back of the Badillo house in a topographic, following the contours, 3 lines. And then there's a silt fence, which you can't put that on his property either. So it's a good, I don't know what the separation on it is.
6 feet to
6 feet, yeah, that's what,
okay, so it's
So
close to 20, yeah.
he's at least 20, 25 feet.
I just want to add for the record that Mr. Wood did come by end of last week, and he and I went over the list of concerns that he had. And so before he left, we went over them again. These are the concerns. I sent those to Mr. Burton, and Mr. Burton responded accordingly. So just for the record, I want you guys to know that we followed up, and Mr. Burton responded. He's doing his job.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much, Brad.
Yeah, one, but The problem with the drain field and the moving of the septic system from wherever it was originally planned or set on the plans, did these folks come in and change plans with you and update their plans accordingly, that they were going to move the house and move the septic system and all that?
It's Mr. Wood's allegation that the house has moved, and it may have moved, but it sure doesn't look like it's much different than where I thought it was gonna be.
And
on
it's
the plans.
larger according to what he said a while.
Every deck that's on there is under a footer that was permitted. There was this site even had we required a geotechnical analysis of this site because of the soils on that site. So they were pretty hemmed in on what they could and couldn't do. I don't, to answer your question succinctly, we require an amendment to
Right.
a plan set, to change a set of plans. But, in the process of field work, you run into rock or run into bad soil or something like that, and you can shift 5 or 6 feet. Technically, as long as you're within the building setback envelope, I don't have a real dog in that fight.
Okay, from your perspective, is there an issue or potential issue, considering that lot is like here and Mr. Woods is like here, and if that septic field is right above him, basically, down a steep slope?
I am not a registered sanitarian,
it's
sir. I can't answer that
Okay.
question.
I can see where the concern would be on his part, but I'm just wondering. Okay, thanks.
Well, and again, it evidently, the location of those drain fields was approved by a registered sanitarian with Rutherford County.
And that's something we don't approve.
We don't
approve
do
septic tanks.
Yeah, I know that's
drain
the county,
fields.
yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you, Brad.
Brad.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else who would like to add anything? All right, then, I think we'll move to our consent agenda. Do I hear a motion that we adopt?
Madam Mayor, I make
Yes.
a motion, we approve the consent agenda as prepared.
Thank you.
I'll second. Second.
Your vote?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any unfinished business? I think we have none listed. Our new business, and we moved 2 things, but they'd already actually been listed on there. I think Brad asked that we move the commercial center and the welcome center to the new business. So in looking at that, and Brad is going to give us a presentation so we better understand what it is that we're looking at here. We're actually looking to clarify, does the council wish to consider entertaining offers via the upset bid process for this property, commercial property? If so, then when? And also, is the council interested in continuing with the RFP amended with addenda process for this property and the Welcome Center restroom renovation, or the Welcome Center alone? So thank you, Brad, for giving us some information.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening, Town Council. I've got a little script here because this thing is a little complicated, but I'm going to try to be succinct with it. For background, it should be noted that the original purchase of the commercial center, which is also known as the Strip Center, and it probably has some other names as well, located at 2566 Memorial Highway, was a recommended effort to relocate the ABC store from its current location. Once that store was vacant, or that structure was vacant, the goal was to market that building and site for a higher and better use, such being a waterfront piece of property located on a high visibility major thoroughfare. As to this agenda item, there are essentially 3 points that need to be brought forward here in the middle of the RFP process, and 1 question that needs to be answered. And we'll start with number 1, in the context of the commercial center, also known as the Strip Center, located at 2566 Memorial Highway. Since its purchase in January of 2016, new discoveries on site have been made at this location. We can certainly dive into those if you'd like, but I believe everybody's familiar with those, and I'll be glad to update you, Your Honor. If you want to know, I certainly can do that. Number 2, based upon a commission project proposal estimate, and I refer to the workshop that was held with council in January of 2019, where I did the PowerPoint presentation from Bernie Dilger. And also conversations I've had, albeit informally, with the 2 and only 2 out of 10 respondents to the initial RFP. We have a pretty consistent range of what the turnkey price for this project is likely to be. And that's the neighborhood of about $475,000, $500,000. Third point is new proposed legislation, which Commissioner Kilby talked about a little while ago, House Bill 971. The short title is the Modern Licensure Model for the Alcohol Control. May directly affect whether or not North Carolina municipalities remain in the ABC business, as this bill essentially privatizes the sale of spirituous liquors in North Carolina. So, very succinct overview there. It brings us to the question at hand. And it's my understanding the town manager has related to me that there's evidently interest in someone, somebody, some entity, something purchasing this property or proceeding through due diligence or something along those lines. Is council interested in entertaining offers on this property located at 2566 Memorial Highway through the upset bid process, or is there a desire to unfetter the RFP and re-release same with enhanced drawings and addenda? And for the record, the RFP, we got the RFPs back. Again, like I said, we had 2 and only 2 out of 10 commercial contractors that really expressed some interest, had RFIs, requests for information, made site visits, things like that. And it was determined that one of the problems was a little lack of information in the RFPs as they were sent out. So the design professionals, I met with the design professionals. They concurred and have enhanced these drawings and have provided some additional information. So that is, that the question is, we've not sent them back out yet, but I'm ready to go with them. So these 2 questions are, do you want to consider the upset bid process and entertaining offers on the property, or would you like to consider going on with the RFP process?
Any questions?
Yes. Right now, we have a combined response to the RFP, correct? Combined, it's for both projects?
The
Or do we have
RFP
separate?
was for one or both. And the only numbers that have been either informally or formally being Mr. Dilgert's commissioned budget proposal, and informally of the 2 respondents to the RFP are for the strip center, also known as the commercial center. I've not had anyone comment with, and it should be noted that the Welcome Center, there are some big holes in some of the information that was presented in that RFP that have been brought to light that design professionals got to
So the
fix.
number here is only for the commercial center?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, that's what
Yes,
I
sir.
wanted to clarify there.
Yes, sir.
Now, during that last workshop meeting we had in here a few months back, we talked about a geotech study on
Yes,
another
sir.
piece of property.
Yes, sir.
I would think we need to know the results of that before we can make a decision on
Okay.
this.
I can, if you would, I can do 2 things. I can give you a quick oral overview. I've also got them printed, and I can bring them and hand them up to you if you'd like to see them also. But essentially, the S&ME was the contractor. S&ME did 7 or 8 site borings. We're talking about the site directly to the east of the Ditmer Watts parking lot in the flat area across from the gas facility at Ingles, okay? And so they did, I think, 7 or 8 boring sites there. And as we expected they would find, they found alluvial soils. They found soils that were a product of dredging.
Dredges for it.
And so that was discovered. The results, there were 3 options that were presented in there. The first one being, and it really just is based upon risk. If the town was desirous of locating a single-story, 2,000, 3,000, 3,500 square foot light-type Morton structure on there, There would be some necessary soil remediation work, and bring compacted engineered soil in lifts, take that other stuff out, but it's absolutely doable. Anything a little bit more than that is, if we're talking about helical coil piles or some other advanced type footing systems that would require more remediation to that site.
As a result of that meeting also, it was pretty well determined that the strip center would not accommodate the AV.
Mr. David Odom, professional engineer, did the engineering work for this site. Tractor trailer coming into the main entrance, which is on Memorial Highway, and also trying to use the Harris Road entrance. The Harris Road entrance, according to AutoTurn in the AutoCAD program, would not work. There was too many encumbrances there. The AutoTurn program in AutoCAD indicated that you could, very skilled driver could probably negotiate a tractor trailer to the side of the building where the teller window is now, where they would have the roll-up door to negotiate, to offload stuff. According to but it was determined it was the AutoCAD program. And the other extenuating circumstance there was encumbrances there. The building, if you look at the east, consider this the east building wall, there is the property line runs at an angle like that. So when you get to the back of the building, there's not much more room than to the side of the building back there, so the teller window is now. Conceivably, by the time you got the truck back to where it needs to unload, there'd probably be a corner of it hanging out on the property owner's door. So, yeah, so it, I mean, it did not say that it can't be done, but it indicates a very building wall. It would take somebody not straight out of truck driver school to make an angle like that.
It would more than likely infringe upon the neighboring property.
It would be very prudent to have some sort of access easement with the neighbor if we were going to the truck back to where it needs to unload. There'd probably be a corner of it hanging out on the property owner.
That's all I've got.
So, yeah, so it, I mean,
I think what we're looking for here is to decide whether or not to do an upset bid, and if we do an upset bid, whether or not to continue with the, proposal, with the RFPs. I don't think we should do, RFPs if we do the, upset bid without letting those folks know that they're bidding on a job that may not be there. And as much work as there is going on right now, I can't imagine there would be too much enthusiasm for that. So, I would suggest we go ahead and go through the upset bid process and just see what turns up and, make a decision then and let these folks know the two that you talked with, where we are.
And a motion?
Yeah, that's a kind of convoluted motion. I guess let me condense it a little bit. I'll make a motion. Yeah, let me clean that up. I'll make a motion that we entertain bids on the strip center.
I'll second that motion, use that upset bid process.
And, make a decision then, and let these folks know the two that you talked with, where we are.
Thank you, Brad.
Yeah, that's a kind of convoluted motion. I guess let me condense it a little bit. I'll make a motion. Yeah, I'll make a motion that we entertain bids on the strip center.
On favor of that motion? They say I don't know who's going to do that.